Oh no, Double T's coming in. What is this you have, Double T? Right. Oh my goodness, it's a little lamb. Ah, it's little Double T's little lamb. Okay. You go sit over there and I'll show our friends the lamb. I had this little lamb the other night. I had forgotten about him. Thank you, Druid. I had forgotten about him, and he is just as precious as Double T. And you guys know I love toys and things. I will never grow up. I will always be 5 years old at heart. But this little lamb is from Amazon, and he or she has a little tiny clipper as the zipper pull, and the little lamb can be sheared. I'll just shear the little lamb. Ah, look, now I have a new cheap. That's a little new cheap. It's the little things in life, right, you guys? So happy Friday Eve. As always, the week has gone by so fast. A lot of things have happened. I got a new refrigerator. Things were, hey Robin, I know, isn't it cute? It's, I don't know. I mean, like, for what purpose does it serve that you can shear your own sheep? But, you know. So I got a new refrigerator. And, oh, the saga of refrigerators. About 2 years ago, I got, yeah, a new refrigerator I could not afford, minus, well, plus the probably couple $100 worth of condiments and other food that had to be thrown out. A few years ago, my refrigerator started dying. It was a refrigerator I had had for like 25 years. I got in this crap refrigerator when we first moved into our house. You know, we had some credit issues because we had bought a house, and like the appliance place was like, no, we won't give you credit to buy new appliances. We're like, oh, what the hell are we going to do? We need a refrigerator. So we ended up buying this like really basic bare minimum refrigerator, thinking we'll upgrade. You know, refrigerators don't last forever. Well, that dang refrigerator lasted 25 years. And I was like, it finally died. And 2 years ago, we were like, the dimensions of our house, of course, are odd. Those big, beautiful refrigerators that you see in appliance showrooms these days, the stainless steel and all that stuff, those don't necessarily fit into our space very well. And in fact, some of them, I don't know if they'd fit through the doors in our house. You know, I know where there's a will, there's a way, and those delivery guys, I guess they know how to do things and get things in places. But so a couple years ago, we went for a refurbished refrigerator. There is a refurbished appliance place literally within walking distance of my house. They literally carted the thing down the sidewalk to my house. Well, it was great until it wasn't. And most recently, like before and during my travels, the freezer was fine. The condenser, whatever it was doing, like the refrigerator part would not stay cold. We did all of the, you know, the defrosting. We did, and it just was literally like leaking condensation and water all over my kitchen floor. I was like, I can't have this. This is too much. So I just went on Lowe's and I bought a new one. So anyway, refrigerator came, and it is beautiful. there is nothing growing fur in the back of it, which is always a problem with refrigerators. I think my grandmother is maybe the only person I have ever known whose refrigerator didn't have at least one questionable thing in it. Anyway, that's a beautiful thing. Also, got a new phone. It literally came like an hour ago. This poor phone is not that old yet. It's old enough that I can't update a lot of the apps. And this is one of those things, like, I'm going to get on my soapbox for a minute, because I think planned obsolescence is absolute BS. I think that, oh my gosh, you have to take your front door off. Yes, that's the kind of thing we would have to do, I think. And it has to come in the back of my house because my kitchen's in the back of the house. Yeah, old houses. Nah. But yes, planned obsolescence makes me really mad because, you know, devices, computers, all the things are things that we need, right? You know, like literally don't know anybody now within my circle who doesn't have a phone. I had one person in my life who refused to get a phone until very recently. Her husband passed away, and she could not get by without having a phone. So she finally got one. But yes, it is, I think it is absolutely wrong. And I really think, I mean, when we talk about ecology and, you know, like climate change and all that stuff, yeah, humans have contributed to all of that, have caused all of that, but also it's our technology that has accelerated it. And so all the newfangled things that are ecologically problematic are compounded by the fact that I have to get rid of this now. Now I am a Verizon subscriber. This is a Samsung device. It is a very nice phone. Like I would be more than happy not to give this phone up because this phone has been wonderful. But like you're saying, you can't update stuff because it, like I went to use an app recently, and it's a long story, I won't get into it, but like I was supposed to download this app, and it was like, you have to use this app. There's no other way to do the thing you want to do. You have to use this app. So I tried to download the app, and it's telling me cannot be downloaded to this device. This device does not have an operating system supported by this app. And I think I can't use my Dunkin' Donuts app anymore. Like, it is so infuriating. So anyway, I was living with that. And the thing that really kicked it off was something stupid I did. When I was in California, I was in a rush doing many things, having fun, and I foolishly left this sitting on the dashboard of the car, the rental car. And it probably sat there about a half an hour to an hour when I realized, oh no, I don't have my phone. Where did I leave it in the car? I run out, it's sitting on the dashboard, and it has all those warning messages like, your phone is too hot. The battery's gonna explode. We've shut all your apps. And I was like, oh no. I literally took the phone. I went to the refrigerator at the retreat center, grabbed somebody's ice pack, and like pressed it against my phone to cool it down. So that kind of got it back up, right? And then all of a sudden the phone battery will not hold a charge. And I was like, this is my fault. I fried the battery. So yeah, that's what's happening. And oh gosh, is my video buffering? Yeah, I think it is. So hopefully you guys are able to see me okay. Anyway, so literally I had a call this morning. I was on the phone for maybe an hour and 45 minutes. My phone went from 80% charged to 4% in an hour and a half. And meanwhile, my mother's fairly new phone lasted 3 days without her ever plugging it in. So that's how bad things have gotten. And I do know that these technology companies can make things that last. They just don't want to, because it means us spending more money. So I'll get off my soapbox. We're all on the same page, I know. It's just super infuriating, isn't it? So that's my railing against the man. Absolutely, you cannot be without the Dunkin' Donuts app. I mean, God forbid you have to order with your mouth. But the other thing is, fast food apps, they give you free stuff when you use the app. So, if you want your $1 French fries from McDonald's, or you want your free milkshake from Chick-fil-A, you gotta use the app. All right. It is cruel and unusual times we live in. Am I right? And today, I have beautiful things to show you. Because I like to look at pretty things. And if you guys remember, if you weren't here on Monday, the recap is I've been in California. I went to a fantastic retreat in Temecula, which is Southern California wine country, which was not something I really knew about until not too long ago. I'd always thought of wine country as Napa, which is in Northern California. But anyway, I had a wonderful time, and then I built in time to stay there because I was flying in and out of San Diego, which is about an hour from Temecula. And I built time in there to stay an extra day so that I could go to the Mingay. The Mingay is the folk art museum of Southern California. Their collection is wide and varied. And one thing that they have is the Pat Nichols quilts. She had a very huge collection. And it hasn't been too long. I think it might have been over the pandemic. She donated about 300 plus quilts. If you go to the Mingei, and it is spelled Mingei. I think that must be somebody's name. I can't remember. But if you go to their website, you can look into their collections and actually see the quilts. They had one of her quilts on display kind of in their permanent collection area. I mean, it's a lovely quilt. It was actually, I think, a quilt top. I don't even think it's a quilt, but it's a lovely thing. But I was kind of like, of all of her quilts, why this one? You know, who knows? But the show that, like, the primary show, they have their gallery upstairs is like one big space, but they cut it up with those movable walls. And so they had 4 different things going on up there, and the biggest one was what I'm going to show you today, which was absolute eye candy. It was beautiful. It was fantastic. So without further ado, let me show my screen. So it was called Fashioning an Icon, a version of Guadalupe imagery in textile design. And I will tell you, right off the bat, I'm not Catholic. My mother-in-law was raised Catholic. But when she married my father-in-law, she converted to Lutheranism, which I don't even know if it really requires a conversion. It's just my father-in-law is Lutheran, and so she just started going to that church. She never talked about Catholicism, so you know, in the Hispanic tradition, Catholicism, I think, for different communities is kind of practiced a little differently. So the Catholic faith in New Mexico, Central America, is going to be a little bit different than, I would say, what you find in European Catholics or, you know, North American Catholics in other places. And one thing is the Virgin of Guadalupe, and I guess you guys probably know more about this, particularly if you are Catholic or were raised Catholic. But I guess the best way I can describe the Virgin of Guadalupe is she is Mary. She appeared in Guadalupe, which is in Mexico. She made some kind of appearance, and, you know, she becomes this, like, saint sort of icon. And you know, Lourdes is another one in France where, you know, the Virgin appeared. So you kind of see these places where this miracle has happened with the Virgin Mary. And of course, Mother Mary, or Virgin Mary, is an important icon in Catholicism, while she doesn't have kind of that status in other types of Christianity. So in any event, that's why I kind of, like, I understand the virgin birth and all that jazz, but I'm not very knowledgeable about this. So please, anybody, correct me if I get stuff wrong. But what I can tell you is you are very familiar with the imagery. You have seen it, I promise you, unless you've been living under a rock, and I know you guys haven't. She is most often shown, and you'll see this. She's most often shown kind of with this sort of golden sort of glow around her. She's typically wearing a greenish colored robe that has stars on it. And this is a little bit different than some of the other imagery that you'll see. You know, often I think that the Virgin Mary is represented by blue, like a beautiful light blue color, you know, with her robe being blue. But the Virgin of Guadalupe is with the green robe. Not hugely different, I don't think, but very specific. So that said, this is sort of what you see when you come up the stairs, get off the elevator. This is what you see. And already very pretty. These stylized flowers, definitely kind of like a, you know, very much reminds you of a lot of the imagery that you'll see in Mexico. Mexican folk art has, like, you know, lots of these stylized flowers. Very pretty stuff. And let me... gotta jump forward here. Ugh. I'm gonna apologize already because I milled around and did not get things in the order that I think I really probably wanted them in. So let me read this to you, and I think this probably will help what I just explained, which is this information right here. So I'll leave it on the pretty picture, and I'll read this to you. So it says, the Virgin of Guadalupe has been a subject of Catholic devotional practice and a muse of artistic expression since the 16th century. Known under many names, including Our Lady of Guadalupe or La Virgin. La Virgin. I can't remember. I think V in Spanish is said like a V. She is a representation of Virgin Mary specific to Mexico. According to the most popular story recorded in the Nican Mopahua, which is Nahuatl, here it is told. I apologize. I am terrible at the pronunciations of all of the Mexican cities. And the indigenous groups there, because that comes in. That's important here, is the indigenous groups. So anyway, in 1531, the Virgin appeared to a Nahua man under the Christianized name of Juan Diego on the hill of Tepeyac in what is now Mexico City. After several apparitions in which she instructed that a church be built upon the site, the Virgin directed Juan Diego to collect roses along the hillside and bring them to the local church leaders as proof of the encounters. Gathering and transporting the flowers in his tilma, which is a cloak, and we will see, I think, at least one tilma in this exhibit, he unfurled his garment upon his arrival, revealing not only the roses, but also a miraculous image of La Virgen de Guadalupe emblazoned on the textile. The tilma associated with this story of Juan Diego, featuring the Virgin's image, can be seen on display at the Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe in Mexico City. Inspired by this story and garment, countless renditions of her iconic image have been depicted in textile form. From blankets and banners to clothing and adornment, the Virgin's likeness has been an ever-present thread in Mexico's cultural fabric. Fashioning an icon, the Virgin of Guadalupe, Imagery in textile design celebrates her representation on clothing and adornment. Objects range from traditional garments created by over 70 artists from Mexico to a selection of local artistic interpretations of La Virgin. Inspired by her long history of textile depictions, these works explore the Virgin of Guadalupe's endurance as an iconic cultural symbol fashioned through creative expression. So, that's a lot. But I think that really well sums up what I saw. And so another important piece of this, let me skip forward to this. So this is another statement. The core collection of textile works presented at the Mingue International Museum is drawn from the Rosas y Revoluciones project, a group of clothing and accessories commissioned from artists across different regions of Mexico by the project founder Linda Hanna, based in Oaxaca, Mexico. So this was really interesting because there were several videos playing that you could sit down and they were translated. And it showed the various artisans sewing. So there's tons of embroidery. Embroidery is, I think, a very important piece of Mexican folk art. And then some crochet. And it's interesting, there was a man who was responsible for like a big crochet project. And so these artists are creating things. And so I think just about everything in this exhibit was like contemporary. So like from the 2000s. So, 21st century stuff. We're not talking about ancient or antique or even vintage textiles. We're talking about stuff that's like produced today. And then the other piece of it, so the Rosas y Revoluciones project is like, I would say probably 70% of this exhibit. Then you had some other pieces that were just by contemporary artists. And one of my favorite ones, which I took a few like pictures of it, but they're not great because it was a video, was one artist who went around San Diego, and because San Diego is like right there on the border. And she took, I think it's a woman, took pictures of, photography. She's a photography artist. She took pictures of all of these different people, places, things that represented the Virgin. So people that had tattoos and Oh my gosh. Some of the tattoos are like beautiful but gigantic. You know, like the guy who has a tattoo from like neck to waist on his back of the Virgin. People that have, women that have like their nails done with images of the Virgin. And then all the things like people have in their homes, in their businesses, grave sites, lawn decoration, like all the things. You know, I think if you visit any type of Hispanic community within the United States, you'll see these things. In particular, because you know it's the Virgin of Guadalupe is relevant to Mexico specifically. Mexicans will have this. So, so the first thing are these beautiful, what I would say, folk costumes. And this is like kind of the first thing you see. And this is a woman's outfit by Lorena Guzman Santos of the Noaja culture. And so again, remember, Noaja is Juan Diego is Noaja, so you know, very, very connected to this woman's culture. 2010s. So this, you know, like I said, this stuff is very contemporary. The man's outfit, they don't get into any specifics, but like I think there's something significant about this hat, and then like the shoulder bag that's he's wearing, and you know, I mean, it's just beautiful, and you could see the imagery is front and center everywhere on these clothes. And so they have a little bit more information here that's interesting. It's what makes the Virgin iconic. So what they say is originally depicted on the tilma attributed to Juan Diego, the Virgin of Guadalupe is characterized by brown skin, black hair, a bowed head, clasped hands, a blue-green starry mantle, a crescent moon upon which she stands, and rays of light around her figure. And so again, like, you know, here's those rays of light. You know, you see the mantle, and even though it's not necessarily, this is not necessarily in the correct color, you know, that you know this image, you've seen this image surely, if you are in North America. And this one I thought was really interesting because this has like further iconography. You've got flowers, and certainly the roses are important. You've got corn, which for indigenous cultures all over North America and South America are important. You've got some other stuff here. I'm not sure what these are. Up here I see there's like deer. So there's all kinds of imagery. So so she's got these rays of light around her figure, known as a mandalora, and that's the you know, that Spanish word. It has the same root as mandala. This almond-shaped ring of light indicates her divinity. Meanwhile, her mestiza features ground her, making her familiar and accessible. And mestiza refers to the indigenous people of Central and South America. This image is seemingly everywhere, prevailing across different forms and mediums, including murals, posters, t-shirts, blankets, dolls, and jewelry. She inspires continuous replication as artists reimagine her in various elaborate and minimal styles with endless color variations, from monochrome tones, which we see in the red one, to neon pinks, blues, and greens. Regardless of her form, La Virgin is instantly recognizable to people of different cultural backgrounds and spiritual beliefs. Her influence extends far beyond Catholic religious devotion, evoking a range of strong emotions from comfort to pain and sparking multiple associations of both oppression and liberation. She is iconic despite and because of her image's ability to represent these contradictions. So, and then they have this description has like this very traditional image. And so, you know, like this has got all the things. And I suspect this might be Juan Diego down here. And that might be what is on the man's. I think that is. I think that is a representation of Juan Diego there, if that's who that is. That's a guess, because I'm not entirely sure. But you see the ray of light, the mantle with the stars, this crescent moon that she's standing on. That's what all that stuff is. And so here we go with all of the beautiful things. This is you're going to see a number of these, and this is the huipil. Um, there are lots of names for these. I mean, I've heard some like kind of not very nice ones. One that I often remember when I was a kid and, in college, often wearing, Guatemalan jackets and these woven purses and all this stuff. They often called these drug rugs. And I think that is a terrible, horrible thing. But basically, it's almost like a poncho, but it's kind of heavy. It's woven. And it is part of some of the indigenous clothing. Very simple. It's got like a neck hole or a slit that, you could pull it over. And it essentially, is kind of your top covering. All of the ones that they had here are absolutely stunning. And this one, even though it's a black background, I hopefully you can see it is a tapestry, woven in a tapestry style. So that would make it like a stiffer kind of fabric. And, again, her green mantle, her rays of light, these are like all of there's the moon down here and the roses. All of your standard iconography of her. And then a lot of things will have this hand knotted fringe. And I suspect that this one might be... No, I don't think this one is applied. I think this is literally the tapestry, like the warp in the tapestry then is taken and it's made into a net so that it kind of crosses itself and then it comes down to these tassels. And just another, you can see how lovely this is. Very beautifully designed. Typically, like this type of weaving, you would often have what's called a maquette or a cartoon. In the back of it, it would be like a piece of paper or some kind of flat thing, maybe fabric or something, where this image is drawn and it's up against the back of the tapestry, and you weave the tapestry based on that layout pattern, whatever. Let's see. Right, bear with me a minute. I don't have. Sorry, guys. For some reason, my chat is not coming up. So let me move this over here. Okay, here we go. There we go. Okay, so this one with the black background is like the central focus, and then you have all these other ones around it, and like they had walls and walls of this. So this one up in the center is like a chambray kind of fabric, very lightweight, and very plain, with this kind of much simpler version. And then it had this interesting little adornment with these two tassels, and it's braided. It's here in the middle and it just attached. So very, very simple. And I suspect that this piece of ornament is kind of like a, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like a stress break for this slit. Because, literally, it's like the fabric is either cut or it's just woven to that point. And so pulling something over your head a bunch of times kind of creates some stress there. So I suspect that that's what this adornment is. It's put there to kind of stop the stress on the neck. And here's yet another one. This one is, it's like a woven fabric in this cool design. And then these strips of satin are putting them together. And then you have all of this embroidery. Now, what's interesting about the embroidery is they use like a pretty thick thread. And depending on what the embroidery looks like or what its purpose is, it will have like very dense stitching and some really interesting embroidery stitches. In one of the videos, the woman was doing something, it almost looked like a figure 8 kind of thing, and I just watched like transfixed as she was just talking as she was stitching, and the process she went through to make this stitch was really interesting, and it was like this kind of chunky, it made like a chunky stitch around the neckline of a garment. So that was really cool too. This one looks like it might be attached kind of at the sides too. You know, there's like maybe a seam right here, so it's not open. It's not like a poncho. So and then let's see what else is here. These also very similar. You know, you've got these kind of, I think what they're kind of narrow woven pieces, and then they're connected. So they're connected here, and then you have this embroidery. A lot of times it's cross stitch, but then sometimes it's a satin stitch. So I think this one is probably more of like a particular embroidery stitch. And these are, I think, all a satin stitch. And you can kind of see, I realize these are a little bit out of focus, but you can kind of see it's literally like this very dense satin stitch with kind of this thick sort of shiny thread that they just, you know, would stitch like this tight satin stitch. And it does end up being like fairly heavy embroidery. You know, I've certainly, of course, seen things much heavier, but it gives body to some of these fabrics that are a lighter weight fabric. And then these down here, these are interesting because these are almost like, if you've ever done huck toweling, has anybody ever done like huck toweling? Like, I don't know how else to describe that if you haven't done it. It's like a Scandinavian needlework thing where you're kind of drawing threads out, and then you kind of do like these different, like very basic stitches, but you end up making these sort of patterns. And that's kind of what it reminded me of. Not exactly, but definitely reminded me of this idea of, you know, just these very simple stitches making these really beautiful, intricate patterns. And then also you see this again, and I don't know, you know, this with the tassels and the straight bar might have some significance, like symbolic significance, but also I think it's there because of the stop of the neck opening. Such beautiful stuff. And the fact that these are all living artists. These are artisans that, you know, again, are part of this project. And most of the things, I think there was a handful of things in there that, you know, said maker unknown. But for the most part, they had the names of all of the artisans. So here, I'll go back to this picture and then read to you what it says about the huipil. So the huipil, and it's spelled Huipil. And I want to say this one is this big one in the center, I think. And what they say about this is Elena Villaseñor Oviedo's garment demonstrates how huipils are vehicles for cultural stories. Made from finely woven cotton, her huipil is decorated with sea motifs. Okay, so I think that actually is this one. It's this one right here. And you can see there's seahorses, crabs, shrimp, turtles, and fish. And, you know, in certain parts of Mexico, when we're talking about, like, you know, the coastal regions, these animals would be, you know, would have been important or normal type of motifs. So it's decorated with sea motifs common among the textiles produced in San Mateo del Mar. So San Mateo of the sea. The coastal town is largely home to people of Iqoots heritage, and that's spelled Ikoots, including Villaseñor Oviedo and her family. Iqoots' life in the Istmo region is heavily influenced by their proximity to the sea and lagoons. Traditions and economy revolve around the water, with fishing as the central economic basis for the town. In addition to sea creatures, these weavers incorporate other local wildlife such as deer and birds. She has joined the Virgin's image with Iqoots sea symbols in her huipil, demonstrating a coexistence of Catholicism, the most important Christian religion in that community, and her cultural's deep spiritual connection with water. So this is, you know, this is something interesting when you have, you know, the historical significance of, I mean, Spanish colonialism. This is why Mexico and Central and South America regions are Catholic, because the Spanish came over and, you know, set up their colonial, whatever they did, the missionaryism, all that stuff, the conversion of the natives. And so, but they, these communities of people, indigenous people, also maintained their cultural traditions. And I think that that is the most interesting kind of marriage of, Christianity and traditional cultural traditions, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You hear these sort of terrible stories, particularly in the United States and Canada, of indigenous populations being forced into schools, etc., for re-education. Whereas I think that there are other communities, particularly Mexico and Central America, where, you did have this colonialism, you did have religion being forced on people. But I think they were kind of allowed to kind of go their own way a little bit. And that's why you see these traditions kind of married together instead of completely lost. Which it's still not a perfect situation, but I think it's better than essentially erasing an indigenous culture in service of Christianity. So, and then I'm not going to read all of these, but it's several different people that created these. I gotta say, I did not love the way the Mingay does their signs because I had a hard time in some cases figuring out what they were talking about. And you guys saw that when I showed you the spoon exhibit the other day. I really struggled in some cases to figure out which was which. But to tell you a little bit more about the huipil, it's derived from the Nahuatl word huipili, and they are a common type of traditional rectangular tunic with openings for the wearer's head and arms. And again, often they're kind of just open on the sides like a poncho. They're created and largely worn by indigenous communities across Mexico and Central America. The fabric is hand woven on a backstrap or treadle loom, producing rectangular pieces. And that is why you've got these pieces, because backstrap looms are not going to create 42-inch fabric. They're going to create these much narrower strips. And so I guess depending on how big the individual artisan's loom is, will determine how wide these strips can be. So they're made up of 4 cloth panels that are then combined to create a single garment. Joining these panels offers a creative challenge for artists as they use different techniques for attachment, including decorative stitching, brocade, and ribbon overlay. How they are worn, constructed, and designed can communicate many details about the wearer, including their community, spiritual beliefs, politics, personal taste, and cultural history. They most often include the flora and fauna of the region, and in this case, images of the Virgin as a central feature. So that is the first look at huipils, and we will see more. Check this out. Bomber jacket slash, I guess it's kind of, it's not really a bomber jacket. It's not really a, I immediately, like when I saw it, I was like, oh, it's like a high school letterman's jacket. But it was kind of neither of those things. But it was this very cool jacket. It looks like it's like a woven, I think this might be wool, and then the sleeves are like a kind of densely woven cotton. It also had like this other fabric. I have no idea what this was, for the cuffs. And I think that it's in the snap or button placket as well. But check out the back of it. Look at this. It's this whole panel, and it's leather. And it's kind of quilted. So it's just such an interesting jacket, right? You can imagine like going out in that thing. So this is called Guadalajara. It is by Claudia Rodriguez Bienzunski from Soloca. Upcycled suede, leather, cotton, and wool flannel. So Guadalajara is part of a jacket series in which Chicana artist and fashion designer Claudia Rodriguez Bienzunski, I'm not sure how her last name is pronounced. I'm probably butchering that, but explores different parts of her multifaceted identity as a Mexican American. In this garment, she represents her family's Mexican heritage through a patchworked interpretation of the Virgin made from upcycled fabrics sourced from her community. The Virgin's iconic image adorns much of the artist's ready-to-wear clothing and inspires her as a powerful and proud feminist figure. Here, the artist's depiction uses deep tones of reds, oranges, browns, and greens, intended to evoke her as Mother Earth. So, like, here's more of this, like, how the Virgin is used as this, like, icon that represents the other things other than, the Catholic religion. Claudia Rodriguez Basinski operates under the brand name So Loca. It's just spelled S-E-W, and the last part is L-O-K-A. Based in Barrio Logan, San Diego. Critical of the waste produced by fast fashion, she is mindful of her use of materials and mode of production to create a more sustainable design practice. She breathes new life into old garments, constructing entirely new styles and silhouettes through creative reuse of upcycled and repurposed materials. So I love that. You guys know I got an issue with fast fashion, like big time. So I think that that's really cool. Yes, you're right, Robin. It is very Pendleton-esque with this this fabric, and I kind of wonder. I mean, this because it does kind of look like a Pendleton blanket. I'm wondering she very well could have upcycled something like that into this garment. So, go on to the next one. Look at this beaded bag, and actually, no, this isn't the beaded one. There is another beaded bag. This one looks beaded. It is not. All of this stuff are stitches. And I can't remember what this stitch is called, but it does. It makes like a little square outline. Then there's lots of satin stitching up here on the roses. Lots of metallic threads in this. And that's what makes it kind of sparkle and look like it's beaded. It's got this fringe at the bottom. And I took some pictures to try to get this strap because the strap is really beautiful. And again, also looks like it's beaded and it's not. It's this really intricate, almost like lacy kind of structure. So let me see. So first of all, here's an up close of the Virgin image. And I mean, you could see like once you translate her into like this kind of pixelated, she loses a lot of the detail, but she's still recognizable. That's the amazing thing to me. Like, the green with the gold, that's her mantle, and this kind of pose that she's in. And then you have the rays of light. Here's where. So you can see they've like, it's almost like this needle lace or crochet along the edge. And then there's all of these little different colored, I guess they're kind of like little bouquets of flowers and hearts, I guess. Just really lovely. It's like just a really lovely detail. So here, and I think this bag and the next one are by the same artist, I think. So this is the beaded one. And I mean, very modern, like it's got a modern zipper, like this is something that, you could definitely purchase for, a fancy outing, or just, this could be like your everyday sort of cell phone bag. I could see somebody carrying this, and also a very beautiful beaded strap. So the artist here is Montserrat Rivera Vidal, and from Guerrero, Mexico. And let me double check and see if this is the person that did the other one. Oh, no, I'm sorry. So the person that did this bag was Odila Cruz Santiago of the Chatino culture from Oaxaca. And it says that metallic thread machine embroidery, backstrap loom woven, and polyester thread macrame. So that must be what, maybe this down here that's attached is kind of like a macrame. And then I'm guessing that all of this edging is what I thought was needle lace is actually macrame. Very interesting. Cool stuff. Okay. So there's the close-up of this one. And I mean, it's got all the pieces and the parts. Okay, so this is what I was talking about, the photography artist, the photograph. And let me read you what this one's about. So this is called En Cada Rincon. And this is Spanish for in every corner. Rincon means corner. So Ariana Itzelye. Wow, my Spanish is terrible, you guys. I'm so sorry. So she's a San Diego based artist, and she did this project from 2004 to 2024 to 2025. So this very new artwork. And so what she did is she did a personal exploration of the enduring presence of the Virgin from San Diego to Tijuana through photos of over 10 neighborhoods featuring 17 local artists. This collection highlights the icon's omnipresence in diverse spaces and mediums. As the phrase, I'm not going to try the Spanish, but it means even if you don't look for it, suggests that her presence is always there, quietly offering solace, guidance, and unification across borders. Ariana is a Chicana photographer and curator from Stockton, California, and based in San Diego. Using photography's power as a storytelling medium since 2008, she aims to challenge stereotypes and confront misrepresentations, presenting an unapologetic celebration of cultural pride. In addition to her photography and mixed media work, the artist devotes time to organizing community art exhibitions, extending her intention to uplift, connect, and hold space for other artists across her multiple creative endeavors. So that is totally awesome. And she does list all of the communities. So, like, some of them are places within San Diego, if you're familiar, you would totally recognize. I've only visited San Diego, so I kind of like, I recognize the names, but I don't really know these places. But Chula Vista, Escondido, Embarcadero, Barrio Logan, Mount Hope Cemetery, Old Town, Playas de Tijuana. So lots of different things. So, but you can see this is literally like at somebody's house. They have created this little shrine, niche, grotto. I'm not sure. But like some of these are just like very simple houses or, businesses, but they have this like, big, beautiful display of the Virgin. This is, I think, just like might have been in some public place. Little statue just tucked right in there. This is a mural that is on the side of a building in a business district, and I'm not positive, but I think one of these women might be involved in the painting of this. This is another woman. Like some of these are just beautiful shots of artists and people in the community, and you could see she's wearing like what I would say is like a more traditional costume, and this blue is very it's iconic of some parts of Mexico. For instance, the Frida Kahlo blue house, she was very, very fond of this color and painted her house this color. I also think of it as Yves Klein blue, which he was an artist that like supposedly quote unquote invented this like just it's the kind of blue that's like so intense it almost makes you salivate. But you can see here we've got a religious candle that has the Virgin on it. And this was another picture of that same woman. And like look at her top is actually kind of like a bustier sort of top, very beautiful. And then her braids, I think, intertwined with these ribbons, like it's sort of a, traditional look. Somebody's front door. I mean, some of these are just like, very simple. And this lady's nails, I mean, she's got the Virgin on her nails. And like this is like I think oh shoot, I can't remember this, like the heart. There's a specific iconography with like the flaming heart. This is in a cemetery, like the little niche over somebody's grave. This guy's tattoo, I mean, and there's another picture of him. And then I think there's yet another person with this type of iconography tattoo. But I mean, from the nape of his neck down to his waist. And it's this very detailed. I mean, you could see like the detail in her cloak or her robe. man, I can't even imagine how long that tattoo took. Okay, this is the next one, and I love this. This one is so cool. And let me read you. And by the way, there was probably like another 50 pictures. There was a bunch. So this one I love because this is by Diana Benavides, 2023. And she splits her time between Tijuana, Baja California, and Mexico/San Diego. So this is made out of, let me scroll in here. You can see it's made out of crepe paper. It's green, and there are stars all over it. And you can see that it is hanging on a cloak rack, like a coat rack. So what this says, it's called Hasta Guadalupe necesita un descanso, which means even the Virgin needs a break. Even Guadalupe needs a break. And the artist statement is, this hand-sewn crepe paper garment depicts the cloak worn by La Virgin de Guadalupe, adorned with 46 golden stars, symbolizing the constellations and planets during her miraculous appearance in Mexico. So that's that's another piece of like meaning that I was not aware of. The garment, delicately hung on a coat rack, signifies a moment of rest for the hardworking Virgin, a pause from her ceaseless performance of miracles and benevolent interventions in response to the prayers of those seeking her assistance. And it's interesting because it kind of goes on to talk about Diana Benavides, and she, like, some of her artwork looks at piñatas. And this fringed crepe paper, if you think about like the iconic donkey piñata, or that one that's like kind of the Moravian star, you're familiar with this. It's strips of crepe paper that have been snipped into a fringe and then applied to the piñata, and you just do that in layers. And that's exactly what she has done to make this mantle. So I thought that was kind of cool. Okay, so I'll leave it here on that for a minute. We've got some more. They had lots and lots of stuff like on the walls to kind of explain things. And this one is called An Icon Among Us. Here in San Diego, especially among communities of Mexican heritage, depictions of the Virgin are part of daily life. Versions of her image can be found in store windows, galleries, or on the exterior of buildings as frequently as you might find her in a church. The ability to change in color and style while retaining identifiability, while retaining the ability to identify her, makes her a timeless and fashionable icon. Local artists use her to adorn jackets, jewelry, hairstyles, cars, piñatas, murals, or on nail and tattoo art. Each visual representation is an example of how her image is a point of connection for various people. So, skip forward here. Look at this. Oh, so these types of tops, I love, absolutely love. You kind of got the yoke at the top that sort of like fits, squarely across, the top of your chest and your shoulders. Then you've got the body of it that is gathered. So it fits a lot of different body sizes. I absolutely love these. And they can be very long, like a dress, or they can be, cropped short like a top. This one is just stunning. I mean, look at all of this embroidery. And this little space here where it's been gathered, it's actually like traditional smocking that these little people have been embroidered onto the smocking. And then you have this is like crocheted, I think. And you've got these little crocheted like popcorns, like the little baubles, that make these additional flowers. I mean, this is just, to me, stunning, this amount of needlework. Just amazing. Let's see. Oh yeah, Robin, these are your favorites back in high school. Yes, I mean, this has kind of got that 1960s, 1970s, definitely this kind of stuff was lots of people traveled and brought these things back. Certainly in California, there's a tradition of these types of things making their way across the border. So, I mean, just in standard American fashion, you can find this kind of, clothing and embroidery details. And it's just so lovely. I actually have a dress that is in this tradition that I made. And it's folkwear patterns, if you're familiar with them. They have a really lovely, and I think it's called like the Old Mexico dress or something. But it's this kind of thing, and it's got shorts, like kind of short dolman sleeves, or you can add, I think, a longer sleeve to it. But just a really beautiful thing. And this says it's a blouse, and the maker is Faustina Sumana Garcia of the Zapotec culture, from Oaxaca. This was on the back side of that display. Yet another, like, just gorgeous. I mean, look at this. And there's the Virgin right there. And these, I could not tell. I so wished I could have reached into the cases and like kind of touched and felt these things. I can't tell if this is just a satin stitch that follows these lines and to make this little swirl, or if these lines are then like the embroidery stitch does like a sort of a wagon wheel kind of weaving. That's another type of embroidery stitch where you kind of, make these lines of thread and then you kind of just weave and it ends up looking like this. So I don't know, this could be satin stitch, this could be that sort of woven embroidery stitch, but what you can see is you've got this gathering, the smocking. So you've got all of these different kinds of textile techniques all in like one very simple garment. And what I love about these is like I'm saying, the garment is very simple. This one is more like the dress I have, where I want to say you're literally cutting this out of like kind of one big piece of fabric. The sleeves are just kind of, like stitched together under the bottom. Sometimes there might be kind of a gusset under there, but like very, very simple. And then this bottom part, again, is just attached with the smocking. But it offers all of these amazing places to put all of this beautiful embroidery and needlework. And one thing I can say, in the video that I watched, and I didn't take any images from the video, but the one woman that was stitching, she said this kind of stuff can take them like up to 15 days on average to do all of this. And that's like sitting there all day stitching. So... And I think probably what breaks my heart, and not so much today, because fingers crossed we are doing a better job of supporting artisans today. But I mean, if you think back, in time, several decades ago, especially, I know I had family friends that would go down to Tijuana and pick things up like this for like nothing, a few pesos. And the artisans were happy to have it. And I'm just like, this brings me to like quilting in general, how quilters will often devalue, or people don't want to pay, for a quilt, because they're like, oh, I could just go buy a blanket at Walmart for that kind of price, and it's like, well, you have to think about the materials, the time and energy and the skill. I mean, we're not just talking about some fast fashion, like throwing it together. This is very, very beautifully done. And this is not the kind of thing that just any old, embroidery artist can throw together without a second thought. This is a lot of work and, time and energy that goes into this. Such beautiful things. So this one, the artist is, I think it's the same artist, Maria Guadalupe Santiago Sanchez. Oh, no, it is not the same. The first one is Faustina Sumana Garcia. And this particular one is Maria Guadalupe Santiago Sanchez. Also Zapotec, also Oaxaca. Okay, so this is going to be a broad view. And I don't think I photographed every single thing in this display. But my gosh, look at these things. This in particular, I cannot even imagine how long it took the artisan to make this. This is stunning. This one was more of a cross stitch versus, the traditional embroidery. So, each of these little sections of these panels obviously was, a different kind of cross stitch design. It is kind of a big, thick thread, but this is still not something that happened quickly. There's a lot of care taken in making this. And I mean, and it's, the back of it is the same. It's just covered in all this beautiful embroidery. What I wouldn't do to have something beautiful like that. So I think this first one is just called A Woman's Outfit by Flor Amuzga of the Amuzga culture, or Amuzgo culture. And she is from, oh gosh, Guerrero, Mexico, but like the city and state is Zacopan, Ometepec. Oh my God. I'm so terrible. I'm so bad at pronouncing these things. They don't roll off the tongue. I have a good friend who is, but she's first generation Mexican, and she's, bilingual since birth, since she could talk. And all of the different city states and things in Mexico that have lots of X's and TLs, they just roll off her tongue. And I'm just like, break it down for me. I sometimes, if you guys have ever seen that episode of Friends where Joey thinks he can speak French and he's like, blah, 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 blah. That's how I feel like when I'm trying to pronounce it. He's like, blah, 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 Oaxaca. Anyway, I show off my ignorance. And this is a little bit more of a close-up of some of these. I mean, look at this one. This one, like, I think it looks like applique, but I do think this is also stitched. And then you have these beautiful satin ribbons and lace that are incorporated in there. This pleats here. This is like a sheer fabric that's pleated in there to make this like kind of upper part of the neck opening. You've got like another type of beautiful sheer embroidered fabric down here. I mean, just layers upon layers. It's like more is more with these, and I love that. I just love things encrusted in pretty colors and embroidery and all that. This one is very classy looking, kind of darker colors and almost like these kind of almost Jacobean looking flowers. I've got more pictures of these. This one's like almost a very, almost like I don't want to say business, but like, you could go to like a fancy event with this one on. It's like a top, but it's tucked into like just sort of a plain skirt. And then it had this kind of belt wrap tie thing. Yeah, so this is a closer look at it. And like, again, look at how dense this embroidery is. So amazing. And there she is. I mean, I'm like gobsmacked. It's so pretty. And this is where I think I got into the situation where I am not sure which artist made this garment. Let's see. Let's see, wait a minute. I think that this might be, no, I don't think that's it either. Yeah, this is where I got really frustrated with with the different placards. I'm not sure which artist this is. Acrylic thread. Yeah, I mean, what they describe, I'm not positive. Let's see. This might, okay. I think, nope, that's not it either. My apologies to the artist that made this, because I'm not exactly sure which person it was. So, but absolutely beautiful. So the ones on the wall. Okay. So I came back to these eventually to take more pictures. But in the meantime, my mom wanted a picture of this. And I actually, they're in the video, that one of the videos they had, you actually saw a woman weaving one of these. And what happens is this is the strap. Each of these little panels are woven on this backstrap loom. And a backstrap loom essentially is your warp threads are tied at one end to a stationary object. So it could be like, I know a lot of artists today will use like a C-clamp on a table, and then they just hook the threads over it, the warp threads. And then the loom part is then literally like just this bar that you can roll up as you weave. And very simple. I mean, it's almost like portable. You would just unhook it, like it is attached to your body, and you just unhook the warp ends, and then you could attach them somewhere else, and kind of just leaning back, you put the tension on the warp threads. And then the actual thread that she was weaving with to make these is very, like a very fine, probably heavier than a sewing thread, but not much more. So, you know, you're not, you know, you're seeing kind of a little bit of the warp through here, but for the most part, it's this red, this beautiful red, pinky red thread. And then I think that these strips here are like a kind of like a ribbon that sort of attaches them, or stitching of some kind. I'm not really clear to me how they attach these, but again, they're little tiny thin panels that are just attached together. So it's not just a matter of weaving this piece. It's a matter of weaving a whole bunch of little pieces and then attaching them together. And then these little tassels on the corner were so fabulous. They're just, I mean, like there's tassels, but the way that they use the different colors of thread and then, you know, group and tie the pieces together is what makes the little people. But you can see here, like all of these colors are represented in here, and they've just tied it off to make it pants. These were kind of probably added in there crossways. The face and the shirt are just there under the pants. So very clever. These different methods of making little doodads. And then again, you see all this imagery. You know, I think this is the Virgin here, I think. And then you've got like cactus, you've got angels, you've got the corn. So, you know, lots of that cool imagery in there. And this is by Crispina Navarro Gomez of the Zapotec culture, Oaxaca. Fine gauge cotton thread backstrap loom weave, warp woven design. Okay, so this is going to be another view of that wall. And again, you can see like these, you know, very like simple garments, top, skirt, but the way that these things are embellished is so lovely. You can see the skirt just kind of has these little pleats in it, and it just, you know, it's just really, really pretty. These I thought perhaps might have been older, but they're not. These are all contemporary garments. And what I thought was really interesting is where you really get into some stylized stuff, or you get into like the Virgin is tucked here in the neckline. You could almost miss her if you aren't looking for it, because these other probably more culturally reminiscent patterns are really what's on display here. So this is also tapestry woven, and I think, is this, okay, so this is called a ruana. Make sure this is the right one. Yes. So this is a ruana by Erasto, also known as Tito, Mendoza Ruiz, Zapotec, also from Oaxaca. And what it says is This Ruana, made by Tito Mendoza Ruiz, depicts the Virgin clothed in swirling patterns. So it's this pattern. And, you know, this is probably a motif you're familiar with in, you know, kind of Southwest and such. But these are known as Greca. And I suspect that these probably come, even though they're seen in this region, I think there's quite likely a connection to some iconography in Europe. So kind of like the Greek key that kind of almost looks like this. So I think this is one of those things where, you know, you've kind of got these motifs and images that spread as you had, you know, colonialism. So these swirling patterns, known as Greca, these motifs hold deep significance in Zapotec culture and can be seen in the buildings of Mitla, a sacred heritage site in the Oaxaca Valley. The Greca represent cycles of life and death. The artist's blending of the Greca and the Virgin highlights the coexistence of diverse belief systems, both ancestral and colonially introduced, that have inspired artists across Mexico for generations. And that goes on to more into Tito Mendoza Ruiz and how he learned his embroidery skills, etc. And I think that what's really interesting is that there's a lot more men represented in, you know, these artisans than we would see necessarily here in the States or other places, you know, where you have artisan workshops. Women are overrepresented, I think, in, you know, places like the U.S., whereas, you know, in Central and South America, you see a little bit more of like both genders in communities working on these types of projects. And my best guess is that a Ruana is kind of like it's like the huipil, but it's slit all the way down the front. So it kind of has these like two arms that I think you can kind of cross around you. So, and then this was a close-up of the design that is in this. And it's at the top. So I kind of was holding my phone up. But this design, this particular design device it's not really, like, you can barely see it. It's very, very subtle. But I thought it was really interesting because I was trying to figure out, like, how did they get that really subtle? And I don't think it's necessarily the thread itself. I think it's the way they wove it, or way he wove it, to make this kind of subtle design in there. Okay, this is another one of those kind of traditional, like, outfits or costumes, but it's made with very modern materials. And so this hat, this little, I'm not sure what you call this little thing at the top, but it was plastic strips. And I think this is really interesting because Native Americans in the U.S. will also, like, their traditional garments will use very modern materials for these things that have been part of their culture for millennia. And, you know, these things might have originally been, I don't know, feathers or, you know, some other type of material. But today, to get that, like, those bright colors and the way they want this to look, they go to, you know, modern materials. And I always think that's so interesting. So yeah, like these little flowers up here, they kind of look like they're, I don't know, either feathers or like artificial flowers literally sewn on there. And then this, you know, again, it's kind of like a fan, kind of like a fan thing. Looks like there's a mirror in there too. Very neat. And this is a wide angle of the outfit. And then the woman's outfit. This has got like an apron type of thing and this like sash sort of piece to the garment. And I think that the top, the shirt sort of wraps. It's a really interestingly designed garment. So the woman's outfit is made, this one is made by Marcolina Salvador Hidalgo of the Nuaja culture. And she is, oh gosh, and I'm not even, it's Chachahuantla, Puebla, Mexico. And the man's outfit is made by Marco Antonio Morales from Veracruz, Mexico. And this is modern, like just made last year, whereas the woman's garment is from the 2010s. It doesn't give a whole lot of information about this garment. That was the other thing that kind of, I don't want to say irritated me, because my gosh, I'm absolutely grateful I could go to this and see these things, but I really wish that they had designed this exhibit a little bit differently and had given a little bit more information about these kind of modern versions of these traditional garments. So yeah, you can't have it all, I guess, right? So this is a close-up of the woman's garment, and I thought this was interesting because this skirt, it does not have like a normal waist. Like, so you would kind of expect a skirt like this to have like a drawstring, a casing, or elastic or something. But in this case, the skirt is literally like this big wide tube of fabric that is then pleated around the waist, and then this sash is used to tie it and cinch it. I'm certain that is traditional, like a traditional way of wearing this. But it brings up, images of other types of garments in other cultures that use this same type of, way to put it on. Specifically saris. Saris use this pleat. And then it's tucked. So it's interesting that, and I mean, this is not the kind of thing where I'm saying like, oh, India influenced this, not at all. But it's so interesting that the use of very basic, square pieces of fabric, textile, can then be, manipulated in different ways to be worn as clothing. And I think about, people that look at, drafting or utilizing a pattern to make sort of traditional looking Western clothing is sometimes really daunting, because you've got like weird seams and you've got like, bias and all that kind of stuff that can seriously make a garment hard to make. I mean, just the bias of the fabric can totally screw up a garment. But the fact that you can get these really, really lovely outfits out of, I mean, what essentially is like very square pieces of fabric or rectangles that are then put together or pleated together or cinched together, whatever, and you get these lovely things. It's really cool to examine this stuff. So so many of these sweet bills, they're everywhere. I was just like, have I photographed them all? Again, just more of this beautiful tapestry woven stuff. I don't know. Let's see if I got. Oh, here's the other picture I got. Check this out. You can see a little bit more of how the color is integrated into the tapestry from this back, and it's almost like a back stitch that they're literally kind of wrapping the warp threads. And this one I think is interesting because I think the warp threads run this way and the weaving is actually going this way. So this thing is woven kind of like length, the length of it is actually turned and it's woven that way. The neck opening kind of would be like skipped, and those warp threads kind of taken care of, and how the neck is finished off. Really cool stuff. This next one I love. Check those out. Look at these boots. Obviously cowboy boots are, really very ubiquitous in Central American culture and Southwestern culture. Kind of got this idea of the cowboys, and that is north of the border and south of the border. So cowboy boots would be very common culturally in parts of the United States and Mexico. So these are by Odilon Castillo, just made last year, and he is from Guanajuato, Mexico, San Miguel de Allende. And then look at these sandals. I kind of had to do like a double take on these, because they're different than any kind of sandal I've ever seen. It's got like this very shoe-like wrap. Then that is also kind of a sandal. And I think from what I could tell, it looks like there's like a toe thong, like, you know, like in a flip-flop that's under this. So like your toes would kind of go under there. But then they've incorporated, you know, the Virgin and all of this beautiful embroidery, you know, and it's really reminiscent of the tops, you know, the clothing. An open moccasin. Okay. Yeah, maybe. I don't really know. I mean, they called it a sandal. And so these were actually made by, it looks like a number of people. They're all Zapotek, and the names that are listed is Niza Gallardo San Juan, Tomasa San Juan Perez, and Clara Garcia Antonio. And they are from Oaxaca. So, yeah. But I mean, can you imagine showing up on the red carpet in those? Put a heel on it. Oh my God. Met Gala all over the place. Okay, the next one is absolutely stunning. So I think this is a very, you know, it's modern made, but a very traditional looking garment. This is the rebozo, which is a shawl. And this, I don't know what these are called, but they're, you know, a clasp or something that kind of cinches the shawl in. And then the way these are, you know, the jewelry aspect of these are reflected in this gorgeous neck piece necklace. This is all sterling silver, you know, just like lovely things. And they're, I mean, you can tell from the size of this mannequin, these things are big. So they would be heavy and like, you know. And then there's like, I didn't look really closely at this, but look, there's all of these stars and a whole bunch of of the Virgin. Like she's just repeated all around in there. And then you've got like semi-precious stones and maybe glass and stuff inset in there. Very lovely. Let's see. Oh, this is a close-up of the little clasp thing. And a close-up of the necklace. And so this is two different artisans, Adolfo Garcia Diaz and Delfina Salinas Cruz. 2020s. This is State of Mexico, Mexico. Treadle loom weave, ikat dyed cotton thread, and macrame. So let's see, the macrame I guess would be in here. I mean, that looks like what that is. It looks like needle lace to me, but you know, they're calling it macrame. I do believe that the man that I saw was crocheting in the video. I kind of think he kind of talked about this a little bit. He said, you know, it looked very much like filet crochet, which is almost takes on like a cross stitch pattern look with these little, you know, little crochet bits. But he kind of said like needle lace / crochet. So I think, again, they're kind of using terminology to kind of encapsulate a bunch of different techniques. So what they're saying about the rebozos is, oh, and the necklace, oh, and they're saying these are cuffs. These are cuffs. I mean, I guess that's the term they're using. But that is the necklace, and these are by Gabriela Sanchez, Mexico City, in just last year, 2024. So this is what they say about rebozos. Rebozos have a strong tie to history and cultural identity across Mexico. The garment's roots likely date back before the pre-colonial period, when it was created out of natural and local materials. The introduction of silk, the treadle loom, and new fashions during the Spanish colonial period, and the Manila galleon trade connecting the Philippines to present-day Mexico. This is something I know nothing about, so that's another interesting thing. So connecting Philippines to Mexico in the 16th to 19th centuries influenced the garment's form, colors, and design, changing it to the object it is today. The garment can be styled in many ways. They are draped over the head and shoulders or tied around the body with uses that include protection against environmental elements, carrying goods, so you could kind of use it like as a like an apron sort of thing, or as an outfit accessory. Draped over the head, it was worn by women as modest head coverings during Catholic Mass. A rebozo was an important garment for the women soldiers, the Adelitas, during the Mexican Revolution, which was 1910 to 1920, instilling it with associations of courage, resistance, and resilience. Other popular figures who regularly incorporated it into their wardrobe include Frida Kahlo. So the rebozo, the shawl, that's definitely part of her iconic wardrobe. And Mexican actresses Maria Felix and Dolores Del Rio. So very pretty. Okay, so this is another thing about becoming an icon. So I will read this. Actually, you know what? I'm going to put it back on the rebozo so you can look at that while I read. I'll put it on the necklace because the necklace is so lovely. Okay, so becoming an icon, part 2. The Virgin of Guadalupe's story is entwined with the history of Mexico and its cultural changes. When Spain colonized the region in the early 1500s, they brought Catholicism with them, often forcing indigenous people to suppress their ancestral beliefs. Although some people associate the Virgin with this period of violence, others found connections to their ancestral traditions. So that's the part I think is really lovely, even though, you know, having religion forced upon you, as I said, they were able to kind of dovetail it with their existing beliefs and kind of, you know, it was a less traumatic kind of, you know, forcing of Catholicism. So the Virgin shares elements with indigenous maternal goddesses of the region, Coatlicue, I can't say it, serpent skirt, and Tonantzin, our mother, both associated with life and death. Her apparition story upon the hill of Tepeyac also follows Tonantzin, whose shrine existed at the same site before it was destroyed and replaced by the Virgin of Guadalupe's church. Interesting, huh? Tonantzin's followers continued to visit the sacred place despite attempts to erase her presence, thus blending both figures together. Despite her origin as a foreign figure imposed upon the people, she was gradually adopted, shifting in who and what she represented. The tilma's depiction of the Virgin, so remember that's kind of the robe or the garment that Juan Diego had. That tilma's depiction of her as a brown-skinned mestiza, which is a person of mixed Spanish and indigenous heritage, portrayed her not as a figure imported from Spain, but born from the land, representing the indigenous and mestizo people alike. Over time, this idea grew, and in the 19th century, she became a symbol adopted by the masses. Catholic priest and first leader of the Mexican War of Independence, Miguel Hidalgo y Costilla, considered the father of the nation of Mexico, used her image as a rallying symbol of rebellion against Spanish rule. So isn't that interesting? Utilizing like what is essentially a Catholic icon in the revolution. Like that's you know, use their own stuff against them. You know, I like that. As an emblem of revolution upon their banners, the Virgin of Guadalupe evoked hope and resistance. Due to this evolving symbolism, the Virgin continues to be a multifaceted figure, open to diverse and complex interpretations. This ability to represent numerous meanings at once has made her a popular subject for artists who freely explore her image through different colors and styles, all while she remains an instantly recognizable figure. So they're kind of sort of repeating some of the things. So let us look at more huipils. This is, I think this is another close-up of the wall, I think, or this might be the other wall. So, but, you know, I mean, again, like these have, you know, so many different techniques in them. And this is an interesting one. I think I came back to this one, but basically the way that this one is woven, I think I have another picture of it, is like there are these little loops. They're almost little loops that come up off of the fabric. And I went back and took more pictures of this one, I think. So this one is Maria Margarita Romolo. Yet another one. And you're seeing some of this, some similar icons coming up. You've got this like hummingbird or bird type. And this is, you know, that backstrap woven, like they're almost like ribbons, kind of. And here you have these lovely little like peace doves with the heart. Like that's a very like modern kind of cute image. And see that this one is Brigida Hernandez. She's Zapotec. And so I think that Oaxaca comes up a lot, and I think it's because there's like a I think there's like a workshop kind of thing there. This another one of those like lovely like tunic things. This one's got the star, and this really heavy, like it's almost like a figure eight kind of embroidery stitch, and I cannot describe, like it's like the way she would wrap the thread and then she would put it down kind of across this like column that she's stitching, and then she'd end up on the other side of the column and wrap the other side of it, so it ends up making this like figure eight, and the needle has come through, grabbed both ends of the figure eight, and like created a stitch under the fabric. It's hard to describe. And if I had a needle and thread, I guarantee you I could not make the stitch, but I can see in my mind what she was doing. And she was just talking to this person that was filming her and just stitching. So she can almost do it without even looking at the work, which I thought was pretty amazing. Oh, okay. So this is one, actually, you're going to see I pan over this whole wall of these. That one's got chili peppers, I think. So yeah, I mean, they just went down the wall. It was great. Oh my goodness. Now here's another set of dresses and things. Look at this one. This little, it's a top, but it's cropped, kind of almost like a bolero. But I think that this front part is closed. And then it's got kind of these gusset things underneath. But all of this is done with this beautiful sparkly thread. And then it's got these little ribbons, just like so pretty. And then the skirt is like a damask type of material. And then they've taken it and they've done these little pleats. And, you know, to kind of give body to the skirt. And then you've got these two tiers of ruffles that also have that pleating to give them body. So it just, like, again, like all of these techniques and to make these things just like so sparkly and poofy and like just, you know, all the things. So this one is, this particular outfit is Sarah Elia Cruz Santiago. She's Chatino culture. And again, Oaxaca. And this is from the 2010s. Another one. This one's like a red, white, and blue. Again, damask skirt. This one doesn't have the pleats, but it's got the big ruffle. And this one kind of is sort of more shirt-like. You know, it looks like it's got like inset sleeves, kind of. And this one is, let's see, did I catch that? I don't think I caught the maker on that one. This one is like a cute little outfit. My mom's like, oh, that looks like something like from the 50s or 60s, you know, like a little like square dancing kind of outfit. I don't know if that's the right description, but you know, made out of satin, lots of lace, you know, more of this really dense embroidery. The skirt fabric is actually this like really interesting check pattern, but like you don't even notice that because of all of this dense embroidery. And you've got to love a skirt with pockets. 2 thumbs up for the pockets. Now, this outfit. So this is actually like an apron, and it is bordered by this lace. And I'm not sure. I think this is a commercial lace, but my gosh. And then you also see this is like a cross stitch on this kind of heavier weave, looser weave fabric. And then the top has got this set in piece that's kind of like a large yoke, I guess, with lots more cross stitch. And then you could see this like beautiful pleating, but it's tucked in. I suspect if this was untucked, again, it would kind of be that like long shirt like thing. You got tassels, got all kinds of stuff here. And then, although it is not virgin imagery, the skirt, look at this skirt. I'm not sure what the fabric is. It seems like this kind of heavily brocade type of fabric, but it is so densely pleated. And then on each of these pleats, there is a sequin that is added. I mean, the time it must have taken to make this thing, and this picture does not do it justice. This thing like literally like twinkled because of all of the sequins that are in these like kind of striped areas. I can't imagine how long it took the artists to make this, artisans to make this. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is a commercial lace. But nonetheless, this thing was just gorgeous. This one is by Rosa Liliana Pascual Batista of the Purépecha culture, Michoacán, Mexico. These are more styles of, the tops and this one, I think it might be ecclesiastical. To look and see if I got, let's see. I don't think that, gosh, this is another one where I'm not sure if that's the right one. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they're calling this a blouse or these are blouses. Definitely, I'm not sure which one this one is. This is either Margarita Hervart Cortez, or it is Jan Christen Mata I think it is probably Margarita Cortez, though. I think it might be this one. And then I've got a little more video. These are just so dense, so densely embroidered. This one in particular, I was like, from across the room, I was like, is that applique? I so wanted some of this to be applique. It is not. This is actually densely, densely stitched. And what they've used here, if you're familiar with embroidery, it's a long and short stitch. So it's kind of like, it's like a satin stitch, but obviously these things are big enough that if you did a satin stitch, you'd have this really long piece of thread. So what you do is you kind of do like a long stitch and then a shorter stitch and a long stitch and a shorter stitch. And then as you kind of graduate your way up the space, you start connecting those short stitches with more short stitches, and and you kind of go, or the short stitches with the next long stitch, and then the next short stitch on top of the old long stitch. So it's like you're creating this almost furry looking, when you look at it very closely, it's like almost fur, but or hair, the way it kind of shingles up and down. You can see, you get it. But it's I mean, just as a satin stitch is kind of takes a long time, because you're filling in a space. This type of stitching also, and I mean, just look how like, very lovely it is. It's very contained. It's very, it's essentially the same little block pattern here over and over and over. I can't imagine how long this would have taken, because the artisan who said, some of these garments will take up to 15 days, like 2 weeks to make. She was talking about like that dense yoke embroidery, and some of the other dense embroideries, not this. Like this is an all over garment dense embroidery. Oh, I think I have. Let's see. This one is. Um, this one is either Lourdes Ortega Alejo or Teresa Borja Perez. I think this is Teresa Borja Perez. I think. This, also very interesting. This was made out of like a rattan, I think. And again, when I saw it from a distance across the room, and I went up to it and I was like, oh, this is like an antique or older garment. Let me tell you about this, and I have a whole bunch of pictures. So this is a Ruana, and I guess the best way I can kind of, my assumption about a Ruana is it's like a huipil with the slit down the front. So it's more of like a jacket than an over the head thing. What it says about this is Monica Diaz Martinez from Oaxaca. It is palm fiber. So it's not rattan, but like a palm fiber, but the way she's woven it together totally reminds me of like rattan furniture. And then they're aniline dyes she's used to color pieces of the weaving, I think probably before she starts to weave it. And then this up here is like a crochet or macrame sort of thing. So it looks like she made this thing in like one big flat weaving, and then she connected it at the top with this sort of crocheted almost. So this is what they say. Monica Diaz Martinez's Ruana, a poncho-style outer garment characterized by an opening at its front, features the vibrant image of the Virgin, fashioned together by weaving dried, natural, and aniline-dyed palm leaves. Its bright pink color is reminiscent of the pigment of Castilian roses. According to La Virgin's apparition story, she directed Juan Diego to collect this species of flower for his tilma. After presenting the adorned cloak to church leaders, her miraculous image appeared beneath. Learning the skill of palm weaving baskets and mats from her mother and grandmother, Diaz Martinez began to think of ways to apply the technique to other objects of use. She now designs jewelry that brings visibility to the trade while celebrating its cultural significance and family legacy. Her work underscores the importance of preserving the knowledge of her ancestors, women weavers in the community of San Luis Amatlan, a municipality in the southern highlands of Oaxaca. So you can see something from one of the other objects is reflected in the light. But this is the image of the Virgin, and we're looking at like the inside of the garment here. So I would assume on the reverse, this is even more lovely because this is the back side of it. And I kind of got some close-ups. This looks like it's made out of a matching colored thread up here. And then you can see the weave here, this type of weave. What I would call like the fringe was also woven like this. And then it's just kind of trimmed. This is an art piece. I mean, it's not really meant to be worn, I don't think. I could see like if you wore this, how some of this weaving could probably pull apart because it's not really, I don't think it's really fixed in any way. It's just kind of the tension of the pieces, the palm fibers. I just thought this was so interesting, to look at this up close. So this is a shirt and a belt that has a whole bunch of info on it. It's by Reina Martinez Vasquez. It was designed by Epifanio Gomez Jimenez. These folks are Mixa culture. And then the belt is by Mauricio Gael Cuevas Magana. from Mexico City. So they're not actually meant to go together, but I thought when I first looked at them, I was like, oh, those would look nice together. So I suspect that this belt, if you think about that woman's traditional skirt that was pleated and then wrapped with a sash, I think that's how this belt would have been used. Or it could be belted, belting one of these blouses. But yeah, this one has like the things that are written in it. It's like they didn't really explain very well. But Reina is written in it, and that is the name of the maker of this. I don't know. They're in different parts of Mexico, so yeah, I'm not sure. This is a cotton backstrap loom with a wool warp. So this is all wool. And then this one, the stitching is much finer. It's not using the thicker embroidery threads that some of the other garments use. This is using like a finer thread. Now these, oh my gosh, these were just stunning. So first of all, this shawl in the back, gossamer. It was so, I mean, again, it's behind glass, like, or up on the wall, I just wanted to like touch it and hold it and like drape it. But it is a very fine filet crochet. And if you're not familiar with filet crochet, this is what it looks like. The patterns for filet crochet are typically look like almost like cross stitch patterns, and you would know that, you skip a stitch to get these little holes, but then you do like the dense crocheting, single crochet to get the dense part. And then the rest of it is like, you like are crocheting to skipping, crocheting to, like, it ends up being this like, it makes this grid pattern. I'm not a crocheter. I know how to do some of this stuff, but like I don't know how to properly explain it. But you get the gist. But I mean, how amazing! Like you could get this very detailed image. I mean, you've got all of the things in here. You've got her rays of light. You've got the stars on her garment. You've got the moon, crescent moon. You've got the Juan Diego down there. And then this is a close-up of the top. And if they're calling this a blouse or a dress. I guess they're calling this a blouse. Yeah, okay. This blouse is by Simeon Rene Calderon Gonzalez, Zapotec, also Oaxaca. And this to me, they're saying this is cotton thread ronda embroidery. So it says, this artist specializes in aranda, and it's spelled Randa, a unique crochet technique that produces an open lace-like structure. So essentially, this is kind of like a needle lace, but I think they're doing it with a crochet hook, if that makes any sense. So it's like they connect it like right into the garment itself, and it operates like needle lace, but still beautiful. And I took this picture to get this close-up of these little smocked pieces, and you can see they're black roses. So I thought it was interesting that they used the black thread here when the rest of the garment is white. But, just lovely. This teeny, teeny, teeny little detail. So pretty. So here, I'll go back to this view so I can read you crafting icons. And this one, I guess I didn't get a great picture of this, the huipil, but it's like the same, like really dense, either embroidery or needle lace that's all set into this, these panels. And you can see like this itty bitty little tiny, like, sort of a dog tooth border, like just like all the little details is so amazing. So you can look at that while I read this next piece. All right, so crafting icons. The famous tilma is not only a revered religious object, but an important product of craft, demonstrating how craft was and remains central to spreading the Virgin of Guadalupe's story, making her the popular figure she is today. It is woven with coarse agave fibers by an unidentified artist and overlaid with an image of the Virgin. So, let's see. I don't think I actually got a picture of this is talking about. um, Hopefully I got around to actually taking a picture of this thing. I think, is it this? I might not actually have gotten a picture of what this is talking about. Anyway. The garment's construction blends indigenous and European artistic traditions. The artists in this exhibition adapt generations of storytelling techniques to create their own textiles representing the Virgin. Amongst the group, common methods include weaving on a backstrap loom, which they describe as a loom tethered to a stationary object and a strap around the weaver's body for tension, and a treadle loom, which is a standing loom powered by foot. And so that's the one where you literally, it's got kind of the like the pedals that you press down and it opens the shed of the weaving. Other techniques include openwork stitching, which I think was what we would call needle lace, crochet, embroidery, feather work, beading, palm weaving, and sequining, all representative of a wide variety of craft traditions across Mexico. While many of these crafts and pieces are categorized as traditional, they are not fixed in the past. As the range of methods demonstrates, traditional garments evolve in color, material, and design over time. They are shaped by artistic experimentation as much as they are influenced by cultural, social, religious, economic, and market factors. So, like, that's that whole idea of, are these artists and artisans being compensated for their work? That's the hope that the Rosas y Revoluciones is like representing them in a way that hopefully they're being compensated for their work. Also, one thing to note, many of the pieces in this exhibition were commissioned works, further showcasing how artists respond to market demands. So I think that's also pretty cool. Like, you can, get in touch with these workshops and commission something. All right, we're in the home stretch here. Look at these, you guys. So these are traditional like loom woven pieces. There's Native American cultures in the United States that have some, I think, more modern traditions of making tourist goods like this. But these are like, the beads are just microscopic beads, and these are just so lovely. And these would just be like a neck piece that you'd wear. And then this is still another little pendant. So the necklaces were made by Alejandra Rodriguez in the 2010s, and she is from Oaxaca. And then this pendant is made by Martha Leticia Lopez Luna, and she is from Michoacan, Mexico. So in the pendant, well, this is interesting. I didn't read this before. So let me read you what this says. The vibrancy of the Virgin of Guadalupe's portrait in the pendant is created through the technique of art plumaria, feather art, where bird feathers are applied in a mosaic style to produce intricate images. So, like, I literally think that these are bird feathers in here. Who would have known? The art form is rooted in indigenous pre-colonial practices of using bird feathers to decorate items such as head and body adornment. Under Spanish colonialization, the practice, as it was applied by indigenous people to their own objects, was discouraged. Catholic Church, boo hiss. Instead, the church influenced the art form's application to items such as liturgical clothing and devotional images. Okay. All right. And so this is one last piece. And this one is called, not a whole lot of info, but what they're calling this is Kexacamatl. Here, let me show you. Lots of Q's and X's and TL's. That's where my ignorance in pronunciation. But this is a backstrap loom woven, and you can see, the panels. And then this is all embroidered on the panels. So a little bit more of a sort of modern folk looking version. And then, you guys, so some of those garments were stunning. This last one, I was like, I'm saving that one for last because it is over the top. And that is this skirt. Look at this. It is a crushed velvet, red velvet with all of this sequin work. I mean, look at it. This is so amazing. And I mean, just dense, dense, dense sequin work. You know, and if you've never stitched with sequins, typically in this kind of application of sequins, you know, you come up with your needle, you thread the sequin on, then you thread a little bead on, and then you put your needle back through the sequin, and then that little bead holds the sequin to the fabric. So, you know, it's like kind of a multi-step. You've got to thread stuff onto your needle and then stitch it. So, you know, that overlap of sequins and beads in, you know, all of these pieces is just, I mean, it's amazing. So the info about this skirt is Noemi Salinas Peñalosa. She is from Guerrero, Mexico, and apparently there's some paint in here too. Looks like maybe Juan Diego's face down here is painted. But velvet and hand sewn sequins. Absolutely stunning. And then I think I have a couple of last images. This is another one of the woven huipils. This one is a little bit more of like that kind of huck toweling type of embroidery. And I think this one does this one describe? No, this one doesn't describe this. No, it is. Okay. So what they say about this, and this one and that other one I mentioned, this says the three-dimensionality of the Virgin's image in this textile is formed by the Punta de Magui. I know that I'm not pronouncing that right. Punta means like point. Maguey is the second part of that. And it's named after the thorn of the maguey plant. If I'm, again, saying that right. Oh, Robin says that might have been a heavy skirt. Yeah, I would imagine it probably is with all, and I mean, can you imagine like it swishes and like very stiff with all of that sequin? Yeah. So this is named after the thorn of the plant, which the artist used to pull the weft thread through the warp, and it creates these little tiny loops in the garment weave. Like many artists who learned their craft through an elder family member, Cristina Brazil Casagrande, who is the maker of this one, was taught by her aunt and now passes the knowledge to others in her community. So this one was super interesting to me just because of this like traditional technique. You know, how this stuff is, it's literally just pulled through. It's not woven. It's pulled in little loops through. It's almost like making carpet or punch needle. Like that's the way they were doing this. And, you know, I suspect like that's a craft technique that was probably developed independently across many cultures. You know, they're using a thorn to pull through here. The punch needle technique is Europe, and I know there's some punch needle like in Russia. There's a whole bunch of different cultures that did this kind of thing, and you know, while I think that, you know, there's definitely some, you know, proof and understanding that you know, 1500s, you've got all this colonialization and you've got kind of all of this global intrigue going on, and so techniques are sort of landing and maybe again merging with the like traditional cultural methods, but then I think you also have a lot of situations where things kind of just emerged independent of each other, and that to me is also very interesting. When you have no clear crossing or contact of cultures, yet they developed a similar technique independently of each other, I think that's so interesting. And, you know, you just kind of wish you could like go back in history and be a fly on the wall as people are, you know, developing these different techniques. And here, let's see, let me skip ahead. I think this might be the last images I have, but you can see how it makes those little loops. And it's, again, it doesn't, so this would be a warp faced garments, because the warp is what shows, not the weft we have woven through there. The weft is secondary. So that's like why I'm saying it's not woven through there in a way that you can see it. If it didn't have these little loops, I mean, you can see it would be very subtle, but because it's been pulled through in these little loops, which, I mean, I guess they are woven through. I said not woven through, but I mean, they are technically woven through, but, you know, pulled through this way. That's how the imagery is completed or created. So, I mean, isn't that lovely? It kind of reminds me, there's bedspreads, you know, I know like in the 70s, these white bedspreads that used this technique, this very technique, were really popular. I think that like this part of the weaving may have been different. We have woven, I guess, a little bit differently. Like this, again, like I said, this is warp faced, so it's the warp itself that you're seeing mostly, but that pulling of the loops out is definitely part of this. My grandmother and my mom both had tons of these bedspreads from the 70s. You probably know what I'm talking about if you've ever seen one. There's just another picture of it, and you can see there's this macrame down in the fringe. And then I want to say there might be some pulled thread work here. Or this is a sort of I don't know. This is kind of a manipulation of the warp threads. I don't know if that would be considered like macrame or if it's pulled thread. I'm not sure. I don't know how they did that. It's lovely. It creates like such an interesting texture. And that is it. Except for one last thing I'll read to you. I'll put this one back up because it's so pretty. Okay, so this is from the video that I sat and watched. It was about 18 minutes long. It had lots of interviews with different people. And it's the artist from the Rosas y Revoluciones project. The video is by Laura Quiros in collaboration with Linda Hanna and the featured textile artists, and it lists all of them. They are Maria Guadalupe Santiago Sanchez of the Zapotec culture, Hilardo Hernandez Cuero, Zapotec, Crispina Navarro Gomez, Arasto Tito, Mendoza Ruiz, both of Zapotec culture, Valentina Damian Osirio, Zapotec, Simeon Rene Calderon Gonzalez, also Zapotec, and Rosalina Bautista Garcia, Mixtec culture. And this was all recorded in the 2010s. So again, I haven't like looked up a whole lot about this project. I took pictures of like this information with the names so that I could look it up. It's not clear to me if this is like, if the project is just the documentation of their work, or if the project is like a supportive kind of thing for like like workshops of people, of artisans. I'm not really clear on what it is, but my hope is that it's in some way supporting these artisans. Just lovely stuff. So that is it. We are at time. I think I did a pretty decent job today, considering I could talk about this stuff and how beautiful it is forever. But I hope you enjoyed that. I was just gobsmacked by how beautiful these things were. And, all of the effort that goes into making these things is just mesmerizing, I guess. And I love looking at things like this to see like close up, like how did the artist make this? Like what were their techniques? And the fact that you could not find a single mistake, like we all end up with mistakes in our work, unless, you are such a perfectionist, you can manage not to. But, I did not see anything within any of these woven pieces or embroidered pieces that looked like it was out of place. It was all like so very, pretty and perfect. So. Oh, yay, Robin, I'm so glad. All of the mispronunciations, right? I'm putting it out into the universe to these artisans. I am so sorry for mangling your names and your places you're from and messing up anything about your culture, because You know, I try, I learn, I do my best. So yeah, and you know, many thanks to the Mingay. And I asked, I said, am I allowed to take pictures? What is the photo, you know, what is the photography and social media, you know, rules? And they were like, no flash. Otherwise, have at it. So I was like, yes. So yeah, if you are out in that area in San Diego, I highly recommend going and seeing this. It's quite lovely. The Mingay is a lovely institution, and it's like I said, it's right there in the middle of lots of other museums. The Museum of Us and the Japanese Garden and the Alcazar Garden that I showed you the other day. So absolutely wonderful. If next time I'm in San Diego, I'm going to make more time to go back to Balboa Park and look at some of the other stuff that's there. I would like to go to the Museum of Us. I want to take some time to walk around the gardens there because I didn't even get to see the Japanese garden. So that's on my bucket list to go back to. So I will leave you guys with that. Have a wonderful weekend. If you are around, Jill and I will be doing a Stitch and Glitch on Saturday. If you've never been able to attend one of those and you have time, please come. We are just usually acting like fools and maybe stitching some, sometimes glitching some. I will be sharing our friend Arlene. She acquired these pot holder quilt squares, quilt blocks, that we're reading a book about them. So if you don't know anything about that, come and see on Saturday because I'm going to show them. Arlene gave us permission to you know, show them, and they're quite lovely and very interesting. So we'll be doing that, and then otherwise just chatting and being fools like we usually are. And that's at 2 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. So yeah, Robin, I know it's been a minute. I mean, our April, like between me and Jill, I mean, traveling together and then my own travels, it's been a whole thing. So, my May is better. Jill's still got lots of things going on in May, but yeah, we persevere. We love all this stuff, even though it's exhausting when you've had back-to-back travel. But yeah, I'm excited to do another one because it has been a while. So. All right, guys, I will let you get on with your day. I never had lunch, so I need to go have a snack before I cook dinner. So I'm so glad you're here. It's so good to see all of you, and I will see you on the flip-flop. If you don't make it Saturday, I'll see you on Monday. So take care. Great weekend. I love you guys. I will see you soon. Mwah!